Stealth has always been expensive, not just the billions of dollars in R&D, but the hours of maintenance required to cover every square meter of the aircraft's secret coding. The B-2 Spirit proved this better than any press release, but its successor, the B-21 Raider, has promised to be available throughout its life cycle, which is rarely ever heard in the context of the newest U.S. strategic bombers. Even more advanced stealth, a huge arsenal of ammunition, and an insane operational range are just a few of the things the B-21 will delight us with. But what compromises will the bomber have to make in order to not fully empty the pockets of American taxpayers? Let's figure that out. Now, when the Air Force began developing the B-21 Raider, the B-2 Spirit was never far from its minds as a kind of cautionary tale of what happens when innovation spending gets out of control. They were determined to create a successful production strategic bomber, not a wildly progressive, but one-off aircraft. The service was particularly careful to keep the Raider's price tag at $550 million per unit in $210 or $692 million today when adjusted for inflation, allowing Northrop to control costs and prevent them from spiraling. On the other hand, as befits the development of a strategic bomber, details of the long-range strike bomber program's budget are highly classified, making it virtually impossible to publicly track how effectively it's meeting its stated costs. Either way, nearly 11 years later, in December 2022, we've finally got to see what Northrop's talented team of engineers have been working on all these years. However, instead of widespread delight, many decided they were looking at just a B-2 version 2.0, which is unfair to say the least. The new bomber is indeed smaller than its predecessor, offering a wingspan of about 132 feet versus the B-2's 172 feet. And the empty weight of the Raider is estimated to be half that of a Spirit. But the B-21 smaller size was a deliberate design choice. What appears to be a trade-off actually allowed engineers to enhance both the aircraft's strategic and operational advantages. The thing is, when it comes to stealth aircraft, bigger doesn't equal better. Sensors, signal processing methods, and multiband system integration have all evolved much faster than we think. So hiding a low-profile, flat yet monstrously huge aircraft from modern radar systems is quite the challenge. The smaller the aircraft, the smaller its effective scattering area, ESR. So if the B-1 Lancer's ESR was 10 square meters, which was comparable to a passenger car flying in the sky, the B-2 had 0.001 m, thus resembling a bumblebee or a golf ball on the radar. In the case of the B-21 Raider, the figure is, according to the military, simply insane, being comparable to a mosquito. The difference between the B-2 and the B-21 in terms of stealth technology is reminiscent of the Mariana Trench because the first had Gen 1 stealth technology, while its successor has received the very best stealth parameters available today, those from Gen 5+. Every screw, bolt, and seam of the new bomber works to reduce its stealth in the radio frequency, infrared, and acoustic ranges, thanks to which the aircraft turned out to be virtually invisible at all 360 degrees. The Spirit, being innovative by the standards of its time, was designed by concentrating stealth characteristics, mainly in the front part and leaving the rear part as it was. The B-21's compact size will allow it to more effectively penetrate regions teeming with the most advanced air defense systems and destroy targets or collect intelligence in environments where the B-2 would be at significant risk. Not to mention that the new generation of strategic bombers does not have nearly as capricious a coding as their predecessor, which required a special temperature environment and hangars. After all, the main pain of stealth was concentrated not even in flight, but in the workshop. The B-2 had this to the point of absurdity. According to the Government Accountability Office, after each flight, some of the Spirit's low observable materials were damaged, and repairs accounted for 39% of the 80 man-hours per flight hour in testing. The B-21, on the other hand, will be free of this headache from the very start. Many were rightly concerned that the Raider's reduction would directly impact its operational range. But range is not simply liters in the wing. Today, it's formed from the fuel share multiplied by aerodynamics, specific engine consumption, and mission profile. Simply put, what matters is how effectively your bomber uses the fuel entrusted to it, not whether it resembles a gas tank with wings. Moreover, in less than 30 years since Spirit's introduction, engine and system efficiency has improved, and mission profiles have shifted from lugging heavy iron loads close to targets to launching long-range ordnance from outside air defense bubbles. The advent of weapons such as a nuclear-armed AGM-181 long-range standoff weapon LRSO cruise missile and the upgraded B21 nuclear bomb only reinforces a view that the lion's share missions are now accomplished by launching missiles or bombs while remaining at a safe distance from the enemy. Many will rightly note that this goes against the concept of the Raider as an aircraft that secretly penetrates the enemy's air defense zone, something we mentioned earlier. But today, air defense has become so multi-layered and networked that given all the enemy's low-frequency radars, high-resolution infrared systems, passive sensors, and trace correlation, striking them blindly has become 1,000,000 times more difficult. And since there was no point in risking an aircraft against a missile that could reach its target perfectly, it was decided to make the B-21 a hybrid. Of course, it retained its excellent ability to quietly enter the area of the location of especially protected enemy targets, or even a standoff weapon does not guarantee success be hidden command posts or objects that can be destroyed only from a short distance and within the highest possible accuracy. But this does not prevent the bomber from being used as a long-range launch platform, employing ammunition from a safe distance and without entering the zone of potential enemy destruction. Its engines, even to this day, remain one of the most discussed topics surrounding the B-21. It was previously reported that it could receive 2 Pratt & Whitney PW9000 turbofans using the core of civil aircraft engines PW1000G. However, the latest data indicates the Raider might be receiving modified F-135 familiar to us because of the F-35 fighters. Firstly, they are damn good, and secondly, they are quite inexpensive. Here again, credit must be given to the brilliant engineers at Northrop, who have perfected the design of the deep recessed air intakes on their stealth aircraft since the advent of the B-21's great-grandfather, Target Blue. It's almost impossible to find them on the flawless surface of the aircraft body, although one of the key differences between the Raider and the Spirit lies not in the contour of the edges, but rather in its architecture. It's designed from the ground up for open mission systems, not as a frozen monolith, but as a flexible aerial platform that can be adapted to missions over decades. That is, new components can be added without a major overhaul of the entire aircraft, which is comparable to installing an update for an existing app on your smartphone. A similar approach is also being used by the U.S. Air Force in the process of preparing the future 6th-generation fighter of the Next Generation Air Dominance program. And it's not surprising that in regards to the latter, the B-21 Raider will work in a single network. After all, the military has repeatedly emphasized that they expect the wars of the foreseeable future to be exclusively network-centric warfare. Now, we're not talking so much about supercomputers with artificial intelligence instead of guns, but more about the connectivity of all elements on the battlefield into a single information network where they will constantly exchange data, forming a single information field. The B-21 Raider is seen solely as a backbone of the future bomber component, as the B-1 and B-2 will soon be leaving us and will be replaced by the B-21 and upgraded B-52. That's right. Did you really think the big ugly fat fella be gone before the 2040s? According to the Air Force, the first Raiders could be combat ready as early as 2026 if the need arises. Northrop Grumman also said it plans to test Fly 2 new bombers in 2026 and said the aircraft are so close to their final production configuration they could be quickly deployed if needed. This sounds encouraging considering that prototypes are typically bare-bones platforms that lack many of the systems needed for real combat. As the lion's share of testing is focused on flight performance, the B-21 was a welcome exception with extensive virtual testing in a digital environment prior to production, as well as over 1,000 hours of testing of its avionics on an unmanned test aircraft. As for the target purchase volume of new strategic bombers, the Air Force has a preliminary plan for a fleet of 100 B-21s, spending at least $23 billion on them over 30 years, including development, procurement, and operations. This is already 5 times more than the number of B-2 Spirits built during its entire life cycle. But let's face it, it would be foolish to deny that the B-2 became an icon and living proof that stealth works, paving the way for dozens of other innovative aircraft. The B-21, on the other hand, is intended to be a stable force component that's less frequently discussed on forums and in the news, but which underpins the planning of any U.S. Air Force operation. This is a fundamental change in the philosophy from one-of-a-kind masterpieces to field tools that you can not only keep in service for decades like the legendary B-52 Stratofortress, but also easily scale up for a specific task without spending all the money in the world. Not to mention that Wild Iron will be damn pleased to finally live in a world where stealth bombers are no longer simply an exotic craft and instead be the invisibility that becomes a standard for combat aviation. How many raiders do you think the US will need in the future to beat any opponent in this very network-centric war? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for more content like today's. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.